So a couple of weeks ago, I did a video talking about the Batman trilogy that I would love to see on the big screen. This would be just about the closest thing to a perfect trilogy of Batman stories ever, in my humble opinion. Well, in doing that air quotes trilogy, I got to thinking about other characters from the DC universe and how I would like to see them handled in film. Superman, like Batman, has had several films already, and at least as far as I'm concerned, none of them have ever gotten it just right. The most recent one, The Man of Steel, it came pretty close, but in some cases, it was miles away from being the best Superman film that we could have, let alone be the foundation for the perfect Superman movie franchise. So after wasting more time on this than I care to admit, I'm going to talk about the perfect Superman movie franchise as envisioned by me. So here we go. The Superman of this trilogy has been around for a little while. Most of the villains that will be showing up in these movies he's fought before, so he's not in the first few months of his career or anything like that. But even though he's been around for a little while, this Superman is still sort of a loner. He wants to help the world and use his powers for good, but he doesn't like the way the world seems to put him up on a pedestal when he does these things. Movie 1 begins with a cold open on Brainiac's spaceship, with Superman fighting some of Brainiac's robots. In this story, Brainiac will look a lot like the Mr. Wizard version of the 1990s. Superman has just foiled one of Brainiac's schemes to shrink Metropolis, and he is able to make it off the ship with one of the shrunken cities that Brainiac boasted about, Kandor, the former capital city of Krypton. Superman takes the city to Star Labs, where Emil Hamilton studies it. Using the very basic knowledge that Superman has of the Kryptonian language, they are soon able to communicate with the inhabitants of the city. When they find out that Superman is of the House of El, they say that they have someone there that they want to meet Superman. Soon, a blonde woman emerges, full-sized, from the city. It's Supergirl. She is the daughter of Zor-El, Superman's uncle. She was visiting Kandor with her family when Brainiac took the city all those years ago. She tells Superman that Zor-El was almost as smart as Superman's father, Jor-El. While he wasn't able to find a way to restore the city to its rightful size, he was able to backwards engineer Brainiac's technology to restore one of the people in the city. The people of Kandor chose to wait before using this technology because they wouldn't have a second chance to use it. Years later, after Superman rescued the city, the people chose Kara to be restored to full size so that she could try to convince Superman to search for a way to restore the city. They felt that one of Superman's relatives might have a better chance of appealing to him to find a way to help the city. Superman is heartbroken that his world is not lost to him like he always believed, and yet he still cannot do anything to save the people of Kandor. A small B-plot of this movie could deal with Lois Lane suspecting that Clark is Superman, like at the beginning of the Richard Donner cut for Superman 2. But she's not spending all of her time trying to prove that he is Clark, like in the Silver Age Superman comics. She knows that Superman is a busy guy, and if he keeps his secret a secret, she knows that he must have a good reason for doing that. And if she is trying to undermine his secret, that takes away from the time that he could be spending saving the people in South America, or fighting the parasite, etc. In a lot of ways, this would be sorta similar to the Lois Lane stuff in the Zack Snyder Man of Steel movie. In that film, spoiler, Lois finds out immediately that Clark Kent is Superman. The only big difference here would be that it's more of an unspoken alliance between these two, sorta like what Bruce Wayne and Lucius Fox have in Batman Begins. And the romance stuff between these two would not come to full bloom. That's a biggie for me. These two haven't just met or anything like that, but it's still important to me that their relationship feel believable and they don't fall in love in the span of 2 hours. Spread it across a trilogy and it feels more like it could actually happen instead of, "Hi, I'm Clark. I'm Lois. Want a kiss? Yes." The rest of the movie will basically be based on the Panic in the Sky storyline from the early 1990s. After Brainiac's defeat at the beginning of the movie, his ship runs into another ship, owned by Maxima. Maxima explains that she is tired of Superman getting in the way of air quotes stronger people like her and Brainiac. She has put together a team of people who, by themselves, were too weak or too foolish to destroy Superman, but she believes that this squad can exact their revenge on Superman if they work together. Along with Brainiac and Maxima, this team includes Livewire, Parasite, and Hank Henshaw. In this story, the death of Superman has not happened. Henshaw is just an artificial intelligence who can jump from body to body when one is destroyed. He used to be a human astronaut, and for some reason he blames Superman for his death, kinda like in the comics. In the comic book Panic in the Sky storyline, Superman had to gather some 30 superheroes to stop the invasion of Warworld headed up by Brainiac. but this is still a fairly unestablished superhero world, and the only superheroes around would probably be Superman and Batman at this point. Remember, this Superman is very uncomfortable with the world looking to him to be more than he is ready to be. But here, he's going to have help if he wants to defeat this team of villains. A parallel can also be drawn here. The villains know that they need teamwork, yet throughout this movie, Superman is struggling with the idea that he will need help. Eventually, Supergirl and probably Emil Hamilton will help Superman. And at the end of the movie, Supergirl will tell Superman that the day will come when other heroes will look up to him for guidance. Even though he may not see himself as someone who can work with a team, he is a natural leader, and he needs to prepare himself for that day. Movie 2 opens with Emil Hamilton believing that he has discovered radio signals from the future. He investigates, but it's a false alarm. In actuality, the signals really did come from the future, and were sent by a future version of Brainiac. This Brainiac is visually similar to the Brainiac 13 of the late 90s and early 2000s, and has hacked his way into the past via Emil Hamilton's technology. It is able to find our version of Brainiac from the first movie and possess him. This Brainiac is less interested in collecting the crown jewels of worlds across the galaxy, and is more interested in destruction and devastation. But not just barbaric devastation for the sake of devastation. Brainiac is still all about the science, like any Coluan, and in a very chilling way, Brainiac will use his vast intelligence to destroy a world and study what happens and catalog the results. Maybe you could have Brainiac be sorta like the classic sci-fi idea where he believes in perfection, and since human beings are imperfect, that's why he destroys them and other organic life forms. This movie would continue the theme of Superman having to go to others for help, and in this case, he needs the science of Emil Hamilton, but even Hamilton is not enough. Since Supergirl is off trying to maintain peace in some galactic civil war, maybe between the Geomancers and the Orthodoxy, or alternatively, after being set up in the previous movie, she is now in her own film, but that's not necessary. Could be cool, but it doesn't have to happen. Superman needs someone to help him fight the combined Brainiac, and if there's two Brainiacs, then who better to fight them than two Supermen? Emil Hamilton soon will realize that this Brainiac came from the future, and that his own time travel theories are accurate. They reach into the future about 40 years, and we get old Superman, who is more familiar with this machine-based Brainiac, and is able to help our protagonist stop the combined Brainiacs. And if you think reaching into the future for help would undermine the actual protagonist of this movie, well, I would agree, but then you've got Star Trek Into Darkness, which made $228,756,232, and did this exact same thing, not once but twice, with old Spock. Then I'd say it's okay to do this once in this entire franchise. This movie would also move the Lois Lane and Clark Kent relationship forward. As I said, Lois is pretty darn sure that he is Superman in movie 1, because we've had plenty of movies where she doesn't already know, and we don't need more of that in this franchise. Well, by now, they're even talking about it, and kinda sorta dating. In a way, their relationship would be sorta rocky, but not so much that you're wondering why these two are even bothering with each other. She needs to understand that he has duties as Superman that are seriously important, while he needs to understand that committing to a thing with a woman is no laughing matter, and if he's gonna do it, he needs to think about how it needs to be done. So these two would be kinda dating, and kinda realizing that it's not easy when one half of the couple is a superhero. As the movie is coming to a close, Hamilton thanks both Supermen, remarking that Superman has not changed at all in 40 years. But when Hamilton walks away, our Superman says that what Hamilton did not know is that the Superman of the future is not our Superman. So you knew? Asks the Superman from the future. Of course, our Superman says. Your genetic structure is very similar to mine, but it does deviate slightly. You're half human, aren't you? Are you? No. Better that I don't know too much about the future, right? This will be a callback to the Connor Kent of the comics, as well as various Elseworld imaginary stories where Clark and Lois have a kid. Also, bonus points if this Superman at some point can be seen teaming up with the Batman and Robin of his time period, or we can hear him mention them. This would be Tim Drake and Carrie Kelly from the very end of my ideal Batman trilogy. This could work one of two ways. One, the Batman trilogy all happens, and then you get your Superman franchise, at which point people would instantly know that this is a callback to the end of the third Batman movie in that series. Or the two franchises would be happening simultaneously, in which case this movie would probably come out before the third Batman movie in my imagined Batman trilogy. And if that was the case, then if you briefly saw Batman and Robin in the future in this movie, you wouldn't know that it's Tim and Carrie. But then once you see the third Batman movie, you might realize, oh, okay, that future is this future that we saw in Superman 2. Either way, it'd be a neat little way to connect the franchises without making one mandatory to watch if you want to watch the other, which is a recurring problem that I have with the shared universes that we have so far in superhero movie franchises most of the time. Movie 3 opens with the people of Metropolis, and by extension the rest of the world, in between a rock and a hard place. I figured that at some point in the second movie, when Brainiac from the future possessed Yellow Goatee Brainiac, that he updated all of the present-day Brainiac's technology. And even though Brainiac was defeated, the city now has this Pandora's box of technology in the form of his spaceship. Not just the alien artifacts that our Brainiac had stolen over the years, but the future tech that future Brainiac had added to the mix. The people are now debating, should we take advantage of this stuff? Having this technology at our disposal would mean better medicine, cures to incurable diseases, more efficient ways of doing things, basically an improvement on every way of life. But then, on the other hand, this stuff did come from Brainiac, and you'll have people who are firmly anti-technology who do not trust this stuff, even if Brainiac is allegedly defeated. I imagine by this point, you'll have the people of Star Labs slowly integrating Brainiac's technology into the city, despite some public outcry. So in the first two movies, Metropolis would sort of look like it came out of the 1930s. It wouldn't be straight up set in the 1930s, but the design and style of that decade just looks really cool, I think, and so that's what our Metropolis would look like. Until this movie. Here, it would look more futuristic. Not exactly Jetsons, but maybe something that looks like it could one day become Jetsons' level of technology. And I should mention this whole argument about integrating the Brainiac technology into the city, it is not a Chekhov's gun situation that pays off at the end of the movie. I put this here for a couple of reasons. One, to fill out the movie, which I will get to shortly. But also, I wanted to show that this is not like most superhero franchises, which seemingly are just the real world with the exception of the hero and the villain. I wanted to show that outside of Superman and his baddies, this world is just not the real world, and Metropolis is not just a stand-in for New York City. It's its own thing that is different from the real world, and I think having a quasi-retro future cityscape being set up in this movie would establish that very nicely. Meanwhile, we see Metallo breaking out of Iron Heights Penitentiary. We haven't seen Metallo at this point in this trilogy, so it's safe to assume that non-comic book fans would not know who this guy is unless they saw an episode of Smallville that was as of now 5 years ago, or an episode of Lois and Clark that was as of now 20 years ago. So this prison break scene will have to get across a lot of information to non-comic fans and comic fans alike. We'll find out that this guy is a cyborg with a kryptonite heart, and that gives him super strength. But we also will slowly find out that this guy is not acting like a human brain in a metal suit. He's acting much more robotic, and that's because Metallo has been possessed by the programming of Brainiac from the future. Turns out Superman from the previous movie did not quite defeat Brainiac as much as they thought. I figure in this second movie, future Superman who helped our Superman fight the combined Brainiac probably took Brainiac with him back to his own time, or they put him in the Phantom Zone. But Brainiac is smart enough to have a backup plan, and he implanted himself inside Metallo's suit, waiting to take over. Anyway, the Brainiac-powered Metallo makes his way to some secret location where Brainiac hid all of his stuff. Even though the people of Metropolis have Brainiac's ship, I figured that Brainiac did not put all of his eggs into one basket, so to speak. He probably put his valued specimens somewhere else, in case he was defeated or his ship was taken over by someone else. Eventually, we'll see that Brainiac is here to release Doomsday. You see, Brainiac has already been the main threat of the first two movies, and while his presence would be felt here, he is really more the guy pointing the gun, with Doomsday being the bullet that he fires towards Superman. I honestly like the idea that Doomsday is a genetic aberration from Krypton, created as a weapon thousands and thousands of years before Superman was born, but it was too dangerous to be used, and it could not be destroyed. Maybe the scientists who created it sent it to some other world to get rid of it, or maybe they sent it into the Phantom Zone. Brainiac, in his travels across the universe, somehow came across the DNA of Doomsday, but did not know what he had, until he was possessed by the Brainiac from the future in the previous film. Future Brainiac knew exactly what he had, but even the terrifying Brainiac was hesitant to release Doomsday on on the world. Brainiac may have been all about destroying Earth, but Doomsday is just mindless havoc, and Brainiac, being a scientific mind, would not really benefit much from this scenario. It's a weak excuse, admittedly, but we need a reason why Brainiac did not release Doomsday in the previous movie. But now that Brainiac has been taken out of the picture, what's left of Brainiac's programming in Metallo's body has only one card left to play, and that's Doomsday. Also, it'd be neat to see Brainiac, which is a machine, still resorting to basic human emotions like petty revenge. Basically, ever since the Death of Superman storyline happened in the comics in 1992, various movie projects have wanted to adapt the story into film. In the Kevin Smith script, we got the death and resurrection of Superman all in one movie, and I've heard other people suggest that if we were going to get a Death of Superman story, that Doomsday would need to be introduced in movie 2, kill Superman, and end 2 that way, and then in movie 3, you do your adaptation of the reign of Superman with the real Superman recovering until the end of the third act. And while there's nothing wrong with that idea, or trying to build a trilogy around it, it's not how I would want to go about it, mostly because that's exactly what you would expect to see. I'd want to surprise the audiences a little bit more, sort of like how I did on the Ideal Batman Trilogy video. So for the first act of this movie, while the Brainiac Metallo is releasing Doomsday, Lois and Clark are still dating. Beyond showing that these two make a great couple so that it can be a tragedy for the audience when Superman dies, I don't have a whole lot to do in the first act of this movie. This is why I was talking about needing some filler with the Brainiac technology in the beginning of the movie. There would need to be something like Lois and Clark as investigators for the Daily Planet researching the disappearance of Metallo. Other than that, Act 1 of this movie would need to have something happening until Doomsday comes to Metropolis, at which point the middle portion of the movie would basically be the fight with Doomsday, intercut with scenes of Jimmy, Lois, and Perry talking about how big of a story this is and trying to get pictures of the carnage. So basically very much like what they were doing in the comics and also in the animated Superman Doomsday movie. And also, you would need a really good reason why Superman does not just throw Doomsday into the sun and be done with it. A while back, Max Landis did a video talking about his own ideas and what he would have done if he had done his own sort of all-star Superman storyline with Greg Pak. In that video, Landis talked about how Doomsday would be so heavy that Superman literally could not lift him, and that even being around Doomsday would make you physically ill. I like those ideas, as it fits really well with the idea that Doomsday is a weapon, and not just because he can punch really hard. So then, like in the Death of Superman story, Superman and Doomsday kill each other. Unlike in the comics, where Superman doesn't actually die and he's in some sort of Kryptonian super sleep where his heart only beats once every 17 days, Superman would actually die here. For real, he's dead. And then you'll have the funeral for a friend thing, not with the entire DC universe showing up at his funeral or anything like that, but with the people of Metropolis that we've come to know over 3 movies. You know, Maggie Sawyer, Dan Turpin, the staff of the Daily Planet, Supergirl would probably be there. If you have any other superheroes showing up to pay their respects, it would probably be Batman, who by this point is still one of the only other superheroes around other than Superman and Supergirl. And if you think that having Batman show up for what is less than a minute of a cameo is stupid and could not be done, I would disagree with you. In the Kevin Smith Superman Live script, you had a brief Batman cameo, and while that did not get made, it shows that at least one brain in Hollywood was willing to push the limits of what had been done before, as the idea of doing a sort of superhero shared universe was still a decade or so away from being done by the time that script was being written. And then you've also got stuff like Tony Stark showing up at the end of the Incredible Hulk movie, for about as long as I would want Batman and Robin to be hanging out in Metropolis to pay their respects to Superman. So this could totally work. After the funeral, we have someone, either at Star Labs or Cadmus, doesn't matter which one, looking at plans on a computer that resemble this image from All-Star Superman, implying that something at least a little similar to the Reign of the Superman story might actually happen in the future. This would be a nice callback to the future Superman from the second movie, who by this point it is safe to assume is a grown-up Connor Kent. And then, like I said, if I was doing the Death of Superman thing on film, I'd be doing something to knock the socks off and surprise everyone. Instead of the Cadmus Project and Star Labs playing Weekend at Bernie's with Superman's body and then the 4 Superman replacements, the Legion of Superheroes shows up after the funeral and steals Superman's body. Just like in the comics, the Legion of Superheroes have technology that allows them to bring someone back to life. Let's not go with the method where one of them has to die to bring Superman back to life, because I don't think Superman could live with himself if they did that. But let's also have Brainiac 5 say that it is a very tricky method that is extremely difficult to reproduce, so that anytime someone dies in this franchise, we do not have the Legion saying, "It's okay, we can bring them back." The Legion brings Superman back, and at this point, Superman has his light bulb moment where he realizes that he knows who these people are. He met them many times when he was a child. One thing I really liked from Superman and the Legion of Superheroes by Geoff Johns was the idea that Saturn Girl would use minor telepathy to make Superman forget his adventures in the future so that he could not change the course of history. But then whenever the Legion would come back to visit him and take him on adventures, he would then remember them. As Superman realizes that he is back among old friends, the Legion tells Superman that the future is in danger and that they need his help. And then the movie ends. What? A cliffhanger? Yes. If this was only half of a story spread out super thin and made to look like an entire story, then this sort of thing would make me really angry. But if it's a full-on story and it just ends in a wowie zowie I want to see the next movie kind of way, like Back to the Future 2 or Empire Strikes Back, then I feel like this sort of ending is okay. Then the next movie would be Superman and the Legion of Superheroes. I've talked in the past about how I am not so much of a fan of the shared universe of the Marvel Studios movies. If you don't care about Thor, but you want to go and see the Avengers, you're basically out of luck, since major plot points from the Avengers are set up in Thor. And you might be calling me a hypocrite for basically doing the exact same thing here, because my idea would be you do a Superman trilogy that ends with hints of the Legion of Superheroes. Then you do a follow-up movie called Superman and the Legion of Superheroes. And this would basically be a backdoor pilot to the Legion. And sure, it's possible that there are people out there who like Superman and do not like the Legion of Superheroes. So maybe they would see this as a betrayal. But I would see this movie as a normal straight-up sequel to the previous Superman movies. It still has Superman as the protagonist, and then the movie would end with Superman returning to his home time, where he'd then have a 5th, 6th, and 7th movie, etc. We've gotten into this trilogy mindset in recent years, and I think it prevents people from doing more with their characters and the worlds that they have created. For example, Superman does not need to be limited to just 3 movies when there's so much more that you could do with him. And spinning off from this movie, the Legion of Superheroes would get their very own franchise. And as far as I'm concerned, you would not need to have the Legion cross back over with Superman in the Great Darkness Saga crossover or what have you. So maybe this whole thing would be similar to how the Marvel Studios people have built up their own universe, but in my opinion, it works better. But then again, I would be biased. So my first instinct here was to have this movie actually just be a straight-up adaptation of the Geoff Johns, Gary Frank storyline called Superman and the Legion of Superheroes, with the Justice League of Earth being the bad guys who hate aliens. This would also be a really good explanation for why the Legion of Superheroes went back in time to resurrect Superman. Because they need Superman to tell the United Planets that these guys claiming that Superman was an Earthling are in fact liars. And in the context of this film franchise, it would have the bonus of making Superman even more apprehensive of being a leader among the metahuman community, because he has been to the future and has seen what the legacy of the Justice League leads to. But as much as I love that storyline in the comics, and I think it could make a great introduction to the Legion, I decided to go with a different direction. It would be here that you would explain that shortly after the Legion rescued Superman's body and brought him back to life, the time stream sorta went screwy. Not because they rescued Superman's body, but because the Time Trapper is messing things up. I like to think that in this world, Superman's death is kinda what catalyzed this huge renaissance of superheroes. So if Superman makes it back to the present day, he'll see many superheroes who were inspired by his death. And if he does make it back, many more would be inspired by his return. The Legion know this, and that's why they brought him back to the future, so that they could revive him and allow him to fulfill his destiny that, in a way, has been hinted at since the first movie. And the Time Trapper is also aware of this, so he's currently turned off time travel so that he can truly destroy Superman right here before he can go back to his own time and become the inspiration that he is supposed to become. No more Justice League, no more Legion of Superheroes. He'd be killing off so many birds with one stone here. So this whole movie is the Legion trying to defeat the Time Trapper, turn on time travel once again, and get Superman back home. Nothing really fancy here. And that's just the beginning of what I'd like to see in a Superman film franchise. I could keep going, as I did mention that Superman would keep getting more films after returning home. The next film would likely deal with Superboy and Superman trying to be a father figure slash older brother figure, even though he doesn't feel like he's ready for that sort of thing. Around the time of Superman 5, you'd probably be starting your Justice League film franchise, and that would be where you would branch off and give other heroes their own movies. I cannot tell you how many people came to me to tell me that they loved the Incredible Hulk in the Avengers movie, and here we are 2 years later. Hulk not only does not have another movie, but there are still no plans to even give him one. If you go from Superman having a few films to having a Justice League film, this would be where you would gauge what people like. If people absolutely fall head over heels in love with the Flash, then you give him a movie yesterday. Same for any of the League. And with so many members who have been part of the League, if Flash has got his own franchise of movies going on right now, he doesn't have to be part of the Justice League. This is another good way to avoid making people think that it is absolutely necessary for them to go and watch all of the movies, even if they're not interested in doing so. This would also be where you would give the Legion their own movies, but I would feel like that would go without saying. This ideal franchise of mine would be much less air quotes standalone than my Batman trilogy video, but I did not want to go the same route that I did with my Batman video, where you skip forward several years in between each movie, much as I would love to see that approach with Superman just as much as I'd love to see it done with Batman. I will go ahead and stop this video here since it's already much longer than it probably should be. Let me know what you guys think of this. Is this better than my Batman trilogy video or worse? Should I just stop doing these altogether or should I do more? What are some comic books that you would like to see me do a video on similar to this if you do want to see me do more? As always, if you like this video, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I will be back tomorrow with some other kind of video. Until then, I'll catch you guys later. Have a good one.